Hello, I'm Jared Fry, General Manager of Medina TV, and I want to welcome you to our 2019 Candidates Forum. And of course, joining me as always is Jacqueline Rinksmeyer with the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, thank you, Jared. We are once again pleased to partner with Medina TV to offer our viewers an opportunity to become more informed voters for the upcoming November election.
And of course, Medina TV or the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce do not support or endorse any of these candidates. This is just brought to you as an informational way to learn more about the candidates running for office.
All candidates in contested races were invited via certified letter to participate in the interviews today.
So sit back and get informed with our 2019 Candidates Forum. Now joining me in studio, the incumbent for Ward 2, Dennie Simpson for City Council Ward 2. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you first start and tell us a little bit about yourself and just inform our voters?
Okay. I'm finishing up my four-year term on City Council. Prior to that, I was a paramedic for 41 years with Medina Hospital, the Cleveland Clinic, with the Medina Life Support Team. I've married to my wife Phoebe for 29 years. We had 5 children. We lost our one son, but we have 4 children that we're so fortunate to live close by, and 9 grandchildren. So my retirement has kept me busy, and I'm enjoying it. I've enjoyed immensely my time on council. I hope to be able to serve another term. But that's going to be up to the voters, and I hope they support me.
And that's a great question. When you first started, let me phrase it in 2 parts. I guess when you first started, what was your passion for joining council? And then now that you've served a term, what's your opinion of it now? Is it still the same?
No. Yeah. My wife and I, we always followed politics, local and national more than state, but involved with the state government too. But my passion was when I started was, things have got to run smoother. It just takes so long for anything to get done. So it didn't take me long to realize there's a reason for that. But when I went in, I'm thinking, well, I'm smart enough that I'm going to be able to guide, with my participation, guide some of the issues through more quickly. And even though I followed politics, I attended city council meetings, I didn't realize it was set up for a reason to be slow. And in most cases, it is a slow process, but the reason behind that is it becomes thorough then, and the decisions that we make are well vented. So, since being on council, I've fell in love. I mean, I was in love with the city of Medina. They've treated my family and I so good, and that's one of the main reasons that I decided to run. Back when Jane Lever was mayor, she asked me to consider it, and then Virginia Gindervan, who was the council seat that I took when she decided not to run again, she encouraged me, and I thought, I'm going to try it. And again, I just fell in love with it. When I was first hired, the city was going through some real financial difficulties, and just had passed a income tax increase that made things a little bit easier. But when I first took office, the city had already had some massive layoffs. So it was real challenging, but to see the administration at that time work to get through it and to put back in place some of the services that we had to eliminate, put them back in place for the residents. So that initially that was our challenge, and it worked out. We were able to do that.
And now, as you look heading into another term, if reelected, what do you see the vision being?
Well, Jared, I can tell you one of the things there's been a lot of things that have amazed me and opened my eyes, but one of the things that have really amazed me is the community involvement. The Chamber of Commerce, which I thank the Chamber for putting this televised lecture on. But the community involvement from all the nonprofit organizations. I'm fortunate enough to have been on council when we started to support and continue to support Main Street Medina. We also, in incorporated an economic development department, which we didn't have before, which has just been amazing. But the community involvement, we have the Friends of the Cemetery, the Uptown Park Committee, I could just go on and on. The money that comes in from nonprofits like the Rotary, the Kiwanis, the Stevenson Foundation. I mean, I'm not going to go any farther because I know I'll forget somebody. But the city could not function and have the things that we have in our parks. Memorial Pool is another good example. We had so many donations from the Kiwanis and the Rotary for that. Individuals like Murray Van Up and Sue Van Up that paid for some of the amenities in the new swimming pool and the Uptown Fountain, and they continue to give the renovation of the Uptown Fire Station, the upstairs, the Van Ups, and other people that have just come forward, and it just amazes me the involvement that the community, still does. But I didn't realize that, even though I followed politics and I was involved in my community, I didn't realize how much involvement and how much financial involvement that takes place. Yeah. So
now, if reelected, what are some of your issues or initiatives you'd like to see in place? I guess twofold. First, let's start with just Ward 2.
Ward 2. One of the things that one of our residents, and what was one of my opponents 2 elections back, was Ed Salega, has brought to our attention and has fought for increased lighting on Reagan Parkway. There's a section of Reagan Parkway that when the Reagan Parkway was constructed, the contractors at that time were supposed to have lighting all the way through. Well, they didn't, and they are no longer around. So he has brought up that for a safety issue, especially with Northrop School being down the road, a lighting issue. Because there is areas of Reagan Park that's not lighted. So what we initially thought, because I was previously chairman of Streets and Sidewalks, in committees when Mr. Salega brought it up, we thought, well, we're doing the North Court reconstruction and a thoroughway through there. Maybe we can use some, because we're going to replace the lighting on that, maybe we can use some of that lighting and save some money. Well, it didn't come to fruition. But what we're doing now is our Parks Director, Mr. Worley, has applied for a grant to extend the multi-purpose path on Reagan Parkway to go all the way to Jefferson, make it wider. So we're holding off we are going to put lighting there, but we're holding off. I don't think we're going to be able to get a grant to help pay for the lighting, but we don't want to put lighting in and then if the paths increased, have to take them out. So that's one big thing. The other issue is the deer issue. It's been said that council hasn't been insertive enough with the state to correct our deer problem. There's nobody on council that realizes, because Ward 2 seems to, I don't know if the deer get a road map when they come in from the townships, but they do tend to come into Ward 2 and Ward 3 more than, and not that they don't have them in Ward 1 and 4, but the population seems to be bigger. And I know I've joked before, and it's not a joking matter. Every time my wife has a green thumb, and every time she brings roses or something home, I always say, oh, how much money did we spend on deer food today? Doesn't go over real big with my wife. But it is a problem, and we are still working with the administration and the state to try to rectify. Everybody thinks that Medina should just be able to handle it. Well, the deer are actually the state of Ohio deer. They're not Medina deer, even though they habitat in Medina. So we are doing counts. The Parks Department's been real good, going out 2 or 3 times a year to do head counts, which is one of the requirements from the state to before you can get a permit to actually call the deer. The other catch-22 in that is the mayor, and I agree with him 100%, being our safety director, he won't allow bow hunting or sharpshooters, at least at this time in the city, because there's no guarantee, even if how well we post online and in the newspapers, that the parks are going to be closed because of the calling. There's no guarantee that people are going to get that message. So I do agree with him that a safety issue that is one reason that, and we've not even been able to obtain a permit yet from the state to do that. The other issue, and again, a lot of people in Ward 4 and Ward 1 don't have the problem as much as Ward 2 and 3 does, is the Canadian geese. And I come in, my wife and I actually live on a lake, so we do realize the problems with the Canadian geese, and I've gotten over the years tons of calls about the geese. And again, they're federally protected. They're a protected species, and I think it's probably 6 to 8 more years before the government will even consider taking them off a protected list. And even to address the geese, you can't go in because they're protected, you can't go in and kill the geese. Mm-hmm. You can get a permit, which our association has in the past, our lake association has in the past. If you find out where the geese lay their eggs, you can go in and abort the eggs. You can't break them, but you can pick them up and shake them. But you have to have a permit to do that. And what the hopes is, if you break them, the geese are just going to figure, well, a predator come in and broke the egg, so it's still going to be safe to, lay more eggs next season. If you abort the eggs by shaking them and they don't hatch, then the hopes is the geese are going to move someplace else to some other area. So yeah, those are 2 issues that I hope we will be able to continue to address. The infrastructure in Ward 2, I think we've done a phenomenal job. We, council, the administration, has done a phenomenal job on replacing streets. I mean, since my tenure on council, we've reconstructed Guilford Boulevard, Harmony Street, Union Street, and of course, every year we do the concrete repairs where the citizens, and they've been so great about it, but it is an inconvenience when they come in and they replace sections of concrete. Every year we do that. The storm sewers were able to, in Ward 2, there was a real flooding problem with heavy rains. The city did one of their biggest infrastructure programs down in Forest Meadows, replacing catch basins and storm sewers and stuff. So I'd like to continue to see the infrastructure be improved. We are fortunate because when we passed the income tax levy in 2002, 0.25% of it is dedicated to streets and stormwater system, storm sewer system. So we spend more money on street repair and street replacement than any community our size in the state of Ohio, and that's a fact, even though we have the lowest income tax rate in the state. So yeah, I'd just like to continue the economic growth. Right now, I mean, the chamber could attest to this. They probably have more new membership now than they have in years. I'm guessing, I don't know this for a fact, but we don't have any empty store spaces on the square. We don't have any empty store spaces in Medina Shopping Center. Kmart Plaza, our hands have been tied on that, but I think that's going to open up where our economic development department's going to be able to redevelop that area. We took a $10 million bond issue out, I think in 2010 or 2009, to reconstruct Lake Road. We extended Commerce Drive from Smith Road out to Route 18 to help alleviate some of the truck traffic that comes on the square. So if they're coming in from the west and they don't have to pull into the way station that we constructed, they can easily get to their industrial area, which again, I don't know if it's 100%, but it's near 100% of capacity in our industrial area. So what I would like to remain on council for is some of the economic development that we're so excited about. We are building a new parking deck, but the Raymond building on the corner of Friendship and Court is a new development that now has uptown living. There's apartments upstairs of it. Once the parking deck's completed, we're going to lease land, the land between Sully's and the federal court, to construct retail on the bottom, because we've got a long list of people that want to bring businesses to Medina. There's just not spaces available. And living spaces up above, apartments up above. So I'd like to remain involved with that, to see that come to fruition, and just continue to work to provide the services that our citizens have become accustomed to.
Yeah. Now, you touched on the parking deck, so you kind of took care of that for me.
Sure.
The other big issue that is going to face council as a whole, and would you in another term, would be the county courthouse, municipal court kind of combination. What are your thoughts or views of handling that?
Jared, since I've been on council and Judge Dale Chase was the Muni judge at that time, we've probably taken at least 7 or 8 tours of the Muni courthouse, and each time it's point out that it is not conducive to running a good court because of space, excuse me, for one, but safety issues for the other. So we've known for years, and we worked with Judge Chase for several years trying to come up with plans to construct a new courthouse. Back in 2000, and I'm horrible on dates, but 2004 to 2005, the county came to us and said, we're going to do a huge expansion on our property if the city provides parking space for us. And at that time we said, well, God, we did parking studies, and there was, at that time, a lot of the storefronts on the square were empty. But at that time, there was adequate parking, but just like anything else, people don't want to, you'll go to a mall and drive around for 15 minutes to find a parking spot close to the store. Unfortunately, I do the same thing around the square. So we got together and we actually partnered with the library and the courts and constructed the parking deck on Jefferson and Liberty. Since when the construction was completed, and the thoughts, let me back up for a second, the county said, if you can't provide more parking for us, we're going to move our courts off the square, which would have been devastating. Their footprint on the square would have, to lose that would have just been devastating to the city and the downtown businesses at that time. So that's one of the main reasons that the city went forward and constructed the parking deck. But after the parking deck, the economy started to turn bad, and the courts didn't have the funds to go ahead with their reconstruction. So from that time, we worked diligently with Dale Chase, and he was so gracious through the entire period, but he kept reminding us, you do have to come up with a plan. You may not agree with the square footage that I am presenting, which we didn't. He wanted to more than double the size of the court. We didn't think that was adequate. But in saying that, he said, I can petition the Ohio Supreme Court, and they can force you to do something, to expand on our site or build a new facility. And he says, I don't want to do that. And again, he was very gracious and worked with us. Well, when the county was talking about the expansion, we asked them because there would have been a huge savings, and there still would be a huge savings, to move the Muni Court into their new expansion project. And that was, again, several years ago. At that time, the county wasn't interested in it. They said no. So we looked at building, where the Masonic Temple was, that we are building the new parking deck on now. That was considered of moving, building a new Muni Court there. Then when we realized that for economic development, it would probably be better because businesses on the west side of the square don't have enough parking. At night, the parking lots are all, not empty, but there's plenty of parking. But during the day when business is going on, and if we want to add new business, which we do, not only on that section on Liberty, but we'd eventually like to redevelop the area from Liberty going south on Elmwood. So we decided, well, we're going to use a parking deck plan for that, and then through Senator Obhoff and Representative Hamley, they were able to obtain a $1 million grant to assist us with the parking deck. So that made that a done deal. So then we looked at the Muni Court of expanding on the site, because when it was constructed, they said you could add another floor. And the same with the parking deck. It'd be easier to add another floor to the parking deck on Jefferson than it would be to, because that was back in the 70s that the Muni Court was built. It would not impossible, but it would be cost prohibitive to try to add a new floor. But we did look at expanding the court on that site because we were going to have a parking deck there, so we would take out most of their parking there. But we figured the parking would be handled by the new parking deck. Then now move up to today's time, and the county again is talking about expanding the county common police courts and the other courts that's in the building. And we asked if we could possibly, move the Muni Court over there, and the commissioners now are receptive to that. So that's where we're at right now with the Muni Court, and Judge Warner's been great through this. The court does have money through that Judge Chase started. Through some of the court costs, they've saved over $4 million to put towards the project. So we hope, I know there's a lot of controversy going on now, and I do support saving the 1969 courthouse. And I talked to some people and said, well, you can't call that historic because I'm older than that court, But I do think that it's a stable focus on the square as the old 1800 courthouse and the 1969 courthouse. So I hope the commissioners and the architects can come up with a way to preserve the 1969 courthouse. But in saying that, I'm more hopeful because at some point in time, Judge Warner, whoever's going to sit in his seat after him, will have to force the Ohio Supreme Court to have the city do something. So I think it would save the taxpayers not only for the county, but for the city, almost $1 million a year in shared services. So I hope that. So that's my opinion on that.
That was good. Now, another issue that's faced council since you've been on it, and also if reelected that you'll probably still face, is diversity and inclusion. Kind of what are your thoughts, and what do you see moving forward with that?
Well, I have two thoughts on that. One, I think Medina is an inclusive community. We've won state and national awards. People want to move here. They want to move here for three main reasons: schools, churches, and healthcare. And we've got the best of all of them. When the non-discrimination issue came up, I received hundreds and hundreds of calls and emails on the issue, both supporting it and ones that were against it. In my profession as a paramedic, I did see discrimination, not in hiring practices, but basically bullying. And it was heartbreaking to see some of the people. I'm one that don't believe it's a choice. I believe you were born. If you're talking about the LGBTQ, I believe that you were born that way. In the legislation, when it was initially presented, I don't know how many people on council would have supported it 100%, simply because the religious community was not fully protected. When the Catholic Diocese from Cleveland came in and said, we're not against it, but the wording has to be corrected, and their attorneys with Mr. Huber, who I don't know how Mr. Huber works, his plate is so full, but through Mr. Huber and the contractual attorneys that the city hired and the diocese, they were able to change the language that was inclusive for the church. So the churches and their campuses are totally protected. I just feel in my heart that our community is a welcoming community. I really and truthfully do. And you drive around our city and you see signs on every block just about, hate has no home here. Now, is this legislation going to change people's personal opinions? Probably not. But it is going to protect a segment of our community that wasn't protected before. And in saying that, I know some of the business leaders have, when the process was going on for almost a year, had made comments, you're really putting us in a bind, because if we don't hire somebody, they can come back and say, well, you didn't hire us because we were, gay, or, well, the process of the system that's set up now, if there's a formal complaint brought against a business, there is a process that will be investigated. And I don't think we've ever had in our community, nor do I ever anticipate having, that someone is not going to be hired because they're gay. But if a complaint is brought up and it's found that it's true, the businesses will be counseled, and there could be punitive damages, awarded. But on the other hand, if a frivolous case is brought up, the person that brings the case could also be held liable. And I just feel that our community, during the process when we had the public meetings, we had one physician, at least one physician that said, I hired a transgender person and one of my best employees. One of our local veterinarians, the same thing, son happens to be gay, and after he came out, he said that he told his family, I almost took my own life before I came out because I was just having such a hard time, hiding this. She hired a transgender person and said for one of the best employees that she ever hired. And we had some people come up and say, and I agree 100%, hire me because I'm the best applicant. Don't hire me because I'm gay, but don't not hire me because I'm gay. If you're not going to hire me, it's because I'm not the best applicant. And I truly believe that. I believe our business community, that I don't know of any situation where people have been discriminated against. But the bullying, and Mr. Coyne, our council president, I think in his public statement said, we're teaching our children. We're not going to change somebody's mind if their religious beliefs prevent them from believing in this ordinance, but we can help teach our children that bullying is not accepted, no matter what the circumstances are. And I agree with him with that. So that's my stand.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to answer some of these harder questions I've thrown out here, and that's definitely good.
It's been a difficult year. Let me tell you, it's been, but a fun. Like I said, I enjoy so much talking to people. It's been, I've seen on Facebook that people are hesitant to vote for me again because I'm non-responsive to the residents. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. That's one of the most rewarding parts of my job, is to answer emails and answer phone calls. There have been a few cases that the law director has personally told me, don't answer any emails or phone calls for this person because there's litigation against the city. And one of them has been a family friend for years. So it's heartbreaking that I can't reach out and say, I'm sorry that you're going through this, but it is what it is.
And I know you've been great about answering these and giving us a lot of information here today, but in case I missed something, or this is your moment, I want to give you a moment to be able to talk to the voters and tell them anything that I may have missed or something you just want to let them know.
Right. Well, Jared and the Chamber, again, I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I would like to serve another term as your Ward 2 councilman. I think the city's in really good shape financially. As I explained, the businesses in the community, most of the businesses are filled. Can we do better? Yes, and if reelected, I will do my best every single day to represent you in a kind, compassionate, and caring way. And I've said throughout my 4 terms, when the public comments on at the end of our council meetings, I've always said, treat each other as the way that you want, the golden rule, the way that you want to be treated. I don't believe that hate has any place in Medina. I will continue to serve you, try to move this city forward. We've not had an income tax increase since 2002, and I don't anticipate. We do when we do our yearly budget to approve the budget for the next year. This year we're working on 2020. We also project out, each department head presents their budget that they project out for the next 5 years. And that has been so helpful to not only to the administration, but to council, because council's the body that holds the purse strings in most cases. So it has been so helpful. We don't anticipate having to raise taxes. We provide services to our community. We just instituted last year the leaf and yard clipping pickups, along with your daily sanitation pickup, or weekly sanitation pickup. We still do the leaf programs. Our every department in our city, and I've been accused of being a cheerleader for the city, but from Mayor Hanwell to each one of his department heads, the citizens of not only Ward 2, but the entire city of Medina can be so proud of the department heads that they have, because I can tell you from personal experience, they all love the city. It's a job, we understand it's a job, but they love their job, and they love the city of Medina, and that rolls over to all the employees that work for the city. I don't know how many times I've heard comments from residents that I run into at Bueller's or Uptown. I just can't believe your sanitation department. It's probably one of the worst jobs anybody could have, but they're always smiling. They're always, more than helpful. We've had residents where they were having a hard time getting their trash from their house out to the curb. The sanitation crews when they realize that, they go down in a system. They're just phenomenal. Again, our economic development team is next to none. Our fire department, our LST levy is coming up again for a renewal and an increase. I hope our citizens support that, not because I am biased because I worked there for so many years, but it is a wonderful service. If you call 911 in the city of Medina for a medical problem, within minutes, you're either going to have somebody from the fire department, the police department, or LST at your doorstep. So I hope you support that and continue to support the endeavors that we're trying to do to work for all of you. Thank you very much.
Dennie, I appreciate your time today.
Jared,
Dennie
thank
Simpson,
you.
the incumbent for Ward 2.
Thank
wish
you
you
so
the best
much.
of luck this November.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Jared.
you.